for another episode of What is Child Abuse. For some reason, we seem that our technical side is not with us tonight. They hulle nie saam met ons werk vandag nie. But we're gonna try and get through this. So tonight like I said, for the month of September, we are focusing on National Child Protection Month, and we are focusing on child abuse. What is it? How does the community play a role in it? What are some of the social ills that goes with it? And we're trying to see the glass from all different angles. Last week we spoke to the Pink Ladies, and this week we are speaking to Arise. So we're gonna give an opportunity to Cindy, so that she can just introduce herself and say who she is. She can determine what she's gonna say to you guys, wat the informatie gaan sy uitlê. And then we will get into the conversation.
Hi.
So hi,
Thank you
Cindy.
so much. Thank you so much, B. Yeah, my name is Cindy Lee van Andel. I am a social worker by profession. I work at Arise Family Center. We are based in Heidelberg, and we believe that every child belongs in a thriving families. We work through family strengthening services, so we do counseling, group work, basically just trying to bring out the best in our families, deepening connection, strengthening what already is there. We advocate strongly for family preservation, but we also do advocate for adoption if it's in the best interest of the child. And then we also have a training and consulting arm. But we are very much about helping our families thrive and, tapping into their potential and just building on that and bringing out their best capacity.
It's interesting that you're saying that you are also a social worker, which as you know, next week we're actually also interviewing social workers, and they will kind of give their angle on everything. So we'll see. Maybe you giving us a little preview of anything. So as we said, and we kind of want to start off with this definition. What is child abuse?
I've got worked for 6 years as a statutory social worker. So child abuse is basically any harm or ill treatment of a child. That's a loose definition from the Children's Act. And obviously there are various forms of child abuse. So you would have the normal like physical, sexual, emotional, and neglect. And in the Western Cape or in South Africa, people would normally think, oh, sexual abuse is the highest. Actually, it's not. It's actually neglect, which, like you were talking about social ills, it links back to poverty, inequality, and all of those discrepancies that we see on a day-to-day basis in everybody's homes, in our communities, and on greater society.
I kind of just before we go to any other question, because I like the fact that you said that in Western Cape, because normally, like I say, when you talk about child abuse, people will think it's either mental or some of them won't even put mental there, and will be sexual and it will be physical. We often forget about the mental when we often forget about the neglect part of it. Maybe you can break it down for us, for those who doesn't know, because like a lot of people say, you talk about gender-based violence, you talk about child abuse, but we don't know what it is. Break it down a little bit more as to what is neglect. Maybe that one.
What neglect looks like practically is if you, as the parent or the caregiver, you are failing to feed your child, you are failing to register your child's birth. It's something that we all kind of take for granted, but it comes down to neglect. Failing to take your child for their vaccinations, failing to enroll your child at school, failing to make sure that your child goes to school, failing to clothe or dress your child appropriately. And when I say it looks like that practically, it is failing to fulfill your duty and your responsibilities as a parent. So your responsibilities as a parent is you got to meet their physical needs, emotional needs, psychological needs, safety, security, their right to identity, their right to a name. So if you are failing in any way or willfully not doing those things, you are subjecting your child to neglect. And it's a fine line because we all are faced with challenges, financial challenges, so we can't always meet the needs. So it's a very difficult thing to say, okay, this child is neglected. There has to be a very thorough
Yeah.
investigation and assessment process before you can say, okay, this is actual neglect.
Mm. Mm. Something that I found out last week that I didn't actually know is that when it comes to child abuse, you are how we were informed that when it comes to the pink ladies, you should actually go and not go to the police station and well, yeah, register child abuse, if I'm using the right
Mm,
word. Social workers actually deals with it.
okay.
And there was a thing that you almost kind of miss out because they as a lot because of the social ills linked to it. They
Mm.
can't see that. A social worker actually sees that. So is that still, are we still on the right track there?
That is absolutely correct. So wherever there is suspected or alleged abuse of a child, they'll
Hmm.
always tell you go to your nearest Department of Social Development or the Child Protection Organization, which is your Badisa, RCFF, child welfare type places. They are statutory organizations. So yes, I'm a social worker, and yes, Arise does work with children and families, but we are
Hmm.
not a statutory organization. So even if someone from the community comes to us and informs us about abuse, I can't go do a home
Okay.
visit. I cannot go remove the child. I cannot move the child at all.
So
I then have to, sorry, you have a question.
hmm,
Sorry. Yeah. If you're not a statutory organization, you can't actively investigate or get involved. Even I, as a social worker, need to report it to Department of Social Development or one of
no,
the
go on. It's just
organizations.
very interesting. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to try not to
I'm just
delve too
making
deep
notes while you're
into it
talking.
because I think you'll unpack a lot of this with the social workers next week. But even if you are the teacher, there is a process that you would follow at the school in reporting suspected or alleged child abuse. So it doesn't go to the police, it would go to the education department, and from there it will go to the child protection organization.
Um,
Okay.
for everyone who's just as shocked as I am, um, I hope you listen carefully as to how, mommy, you must answer that child there.
I can't, the door's locked.
Yeah. So I like the fact that when I always interview a woman or a mom, you will also always hear in the background how the kids are crying for mommy,
Ach,
and
YouTube must
mommy's
be
busy doing
buffering
an
or something.
interview.
Yeah.
So so okay, so we got, now if we want to do any reporting of child abuse, you go to a statutory department, which is either social development, the Badisas, that kind of organizations, or if it's in school, it's education department.
Yeah, that's correct.
uh, so okay,
Mhm.
so we got that sorted.
Okay.
Okay. Are you still, I know our second, yeah, I also think like I said, technology is not on our
Not our
side
friend.
today.
Mm. No.
But I think we will be, I see we figuring out, and then we'll be back to normal. There we now I think our leg should have stopped right now. Can you hear me better now?
It's in and out, so I get every third word.
Cindy? Okay.
Hi,
So
can you
you,
hear
so
me?
so you can hear me now. Okay.
Yes.
So then next let's go. What is the difference, because you are foster care? What is the difference between Hi. I don't want good evening. It seems that we are really struggling tonight with audio. Um, that Cindy, can you hear me now? Really struggling tonight with audio. Um, that Cindy, can you hear me now? Really
I can hear you.
struggling
There's
tonight with
just an
audio.
echo.
Um, that Cindy, can you hear me now? Really
I can hear
struggling
you. There's
tonight.
just an
Let me just get
echo.
that sorted. Um, Cindy, can you hear me now?
I can hear
Okay.
you. There's just an
Let me just get
echo.
that sorted. Um, Cindy, can you hear me now?
I can hear
Okay.
you. There's just an
Let me just get
echo.
that sorted. Cindy, can you? I don't know what's happening tonight. This is the first time that we have struggled with an interview um like this. Okay, are we
I've
back?
got you now. Yeah, I've got you now. Let's just try again.
Okay. I think this interview is so important that they don't want us to hear you tonight. I think that is the issue. Because we have done interviews and this is the first time that our mics has just given up on us. So okay, let me apologize for that, and let's try and do that last question again. What is the difference between foster homes and safe homes?
Okay, so in terms of when a child is removed,
Mhm.
because the primary goal is to secure the child, we would then place the child in what we call temporary safe care. And in terms of the
Okay.
Children's Act, this is a designated period for 90 days. The purpose of the 90 days is you go to court the first day, you get a court order that allows you to remove the child and place the child in temporary safe care. And then the 90
Mhm.
days is for you to complete the investigation to determine whether the child can be returned to the parent or whether the child needs to be placed in what we would say alternative care, which is deeper into the system. And that's where you then find foster care. So, foster care placements is anywhere from is done for periods of 2 years at a time. In the case where there is no possibility of reunification or the child is an orphan, the placement will be done up until the child is actually 18 years old. Does
Huh.
that make sense to you? So temporary safe care
Wow.
is a
Okay.
short-term placement
So 90 days.
in theory. So what
Okay.
happens in practice is often in 90 days you cannot complete the investigation for various reasons. And if you do not have enough evidence to present to court to determine whether the child must be returned or whether the child must be placed into foster care, then you would ask for an extension, and then the court can decide, okay, we're going to extend by 30 days or another 90 days. And this is often where children stay in temporary safe care longer than 90 days before they are actually uh, placed into the foster care system.
Okay. So and until you guys finish the investigation, the child stays in a safe home, and
Yes.
then after they are either placed back with the parents or guardians, family members,
Hmm.
I would assume,
Yes.
or they go to foster care.
Yeah. So with safe homes, it can either be a what we will call a safety parent. So that is a single
Mhm.
person or a couple. So it's a family home setting. And a safety parent can have up to 6 children in temporary safe care. And then you've got
Okay.
the what we would call the traditional children's homes. And that can also be a place of safety for a short term period.
Okay. It makes sense now. Yes. No. I'm just adding all the puzzles together. Okay, fine. That makes
Mhm.
sense. Okay. So while in investigation, it's still safe house almost, and foster care is
Yeah.
almost like a permanent residency, if you want to call it that way.
Yes. So the goal of foster care or even temporary safe care, at the end of it all, the goal is ultimately reunification. So we want the child to go back into what we would call the family of origin, which is why we do work like family preservation and family strengthening. But in most
Mm,
cases, that is not possible. So the child cannot return to
mm,
parent. So that is why we would then need to sort of take one step further, and we would say you go deeper into the system.
mm.
And even foster care, you can be placed with a family member. Sometimes it's an unrelated placement. And if there is
Okay.
none of those, then we would look at a placement in a child and youth care center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a comment that says, um, it says, Beyondifer, what about the child's mental state during that 90? That was going to be my next question, Amanda. So yes, we kind of going to that stage. So the kid now, let's use sexual abuse, because people would normally
Yeah.
use child abuse as sexual. So the child has
Mhm.
gone through sexual abuse in the house. It's been reported, and now he goes to a safe place, right?
Okay.
um does that child get therapy and all that? Because wouldn't there be some kind of mental and emotional distortment happening, because now I'm being removed from my parents while this investigation is taking place, before I'm being maybe moved to a foster care.
Okay. So where there's been sexual abuse in the home, obviously criminal charges are also laid. An assessment is done. We call it a safety assessment. And in those safety assessment, we look at things like protective factors. So if it is mommy's boyfriend, um, obviously criminal charges being laid, the perpetrator is removed from the home. And in that way, we are then limiting additional trauma to the child. If it is not safe for the child to remain in the home, then we need to remove the child. So we don't want to have additional trauma because, like you're saying, a removal is a traumatic event for a child anyway.
Mm,
Once they are then placed in safe care, we do a full assessment of the child in terms of what are the immediate needs of the child. So whether that would be therapy, whether it is having to go to the district surgeon for a medical exam, and those services are all provided. And it's not once off; it is as long as the child needs it.
Yeah. It's just, I would assume for just taking it from your point of view, because that is the point of view you're looking at, that already for me, the 90 days wouldn't be suffice. And I guess that's why you say technically it should be 90 days, but oftentimes it's not, because you must now do investigations, you must do say for instance a sexual assault, the police must be involved, the child must go for therapy, and then after you can decide, is it the child ready to be placed back into their home.
Yeah. So look, I know that we try. I'm going to speak for social workers now. We try our hardest to do justice within those 90 days. But obviously, there are factors like if the perpetrator's now gone missing, um, when we have to work with other agencies, I can't control what's happening at SAPS. What I then become is the person that needs to collate all the information, put it together, and present the information to court. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that happens, and it's not just investigation, because you have to work with a family, you have to work with a child, so you're kind of wearing different hats for the best
Hmm.
interest of the child. I mean, that overrides everything else. So it's difficult, and I think those are some of the factors that actually make it difficult, um,
Yeah.
for the protection of children going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just imagine that. I mean, I don't know. Just looking after my children is it's already, I can't do that in 90 days. So I don't know how you do that to other people's children. But anyway, let's not
Yeah.
get foster homes. What are
Yes.
some of the so I'm correct in saying foster homes is now the child's almost permanent residency. They've moved from a place of safety to foster homes.
Hmm.
And they would now be staying there because there's no guardians, there's no one to look after them. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, we would say there's no suitable caregiver available. So neither of the parents,
Okay.
in the process of finding a suitable placement, you obviously try parents first. If they are not suitable, then you would obviously look at the immediate family, because you want to do a related placement. You want to keep the child in their family of origin. If that's not possible, then it might be an unrelated placement. So
Sure.
yeah, you just kind of work through. You like give me all the aunties' names. Let me phone who's willing to take this child in
Mm,
to keep them as connected as possible, so that you limit the damage you're actually doing to the child.
sure. Anyway, foster home. So now they're in foster care, right?
Yeah.
And say, for instance, the child starts there at 6 years old. He has now technically have 12 years to stay in foster care, unless there's some gracious parent that is willing to take that child. He then stays with you guys for 12 years. Am I technically correct for saying that?
Yeah. So the foster care placement gets reviewed at court every 2 years. And in that 2 years, the social worker is responsible for attempting what we call reunification with the family, the natural family, so the birth parents and that immediate family. If that is
Mm,
not possible, then the foster placement is extended for another 2 years. And that's it's a disconcerting experience for a child, because you kind of know that every 6 months or so, or there comes a time where the social worker comes in with all the paperwork, and the children actually start becoming anxious because they fear removal again.
sure.
So it's like you're ripping off the bandage every time when you now have to go in and check on the placement and
Mm,
make sure they're okay. Um, and you can only hope that maybe in the first 2 years they've actually overcome the trauma that brought them into that placement. Whatever happened to them that caused them to be removed, that they found security and safety and attachment and love in their foster family.
mm, sure. I can only, yeah. So they get attached. So the 6 year old is now they say at 7.5. So by
Hmm.
now, um, files need to be open again because I now need to go see, is there's someone in the family that has now changed their mind over the 2 years that would take this child back. Um, so in those 2 years, do they obviously the social workers is trying to work with the family to get them ready if maybe there's a situation of I'm not mentally prepared, I'm not financially prepared. Is that what is kind of happening?
Yeah, in most cases, that is what happens, or there's a substance abuse issue, or it was just a simple case of neglect, and you needed to upskill the parents in terms of actually how to parent. But it means there was a responsibility put on them to come to parenting classes, come for workshops and things. So if they haven't done that part, um, you can't really send the child back into what you took him out of. And also, while the child is in foster care, we actually encourage contact from the parents and caregivers if it's in the best interest of the child. But if you are causing more trauma and you haven't come to visit the child and you've not maintained contact, there's no way you want to put a child back with a stranger, in essence, because 18 months is a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Here's a question before I go on. Um, it says in terms of volunteering, from the community side, how does the social development department collab with other agencies to combat trauma for these children?
Okay. So I'm going to speak in the Western Cape and for South Africa. One department cannot do it all. So there
Mhm.
might be another, like Arise, we focus strongly on family preservation, and we look at things like attachment, and building relationships and spending time with each other, how to deal with anger or challenging behavior, hard conversations. So we might have expertise in that area. So that is why we network
Mm,
with other organizations, because doing the statutory side alone is a lot of work. There isn't
mm,
physically time. I mean, I can speak from my own experience. There isn't physically time to sit there and do the counseling with the
mm,
child. So then we might need to access services at the day hospital or at Red Cross Division of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, because it's not just something you can talk through with a child. Where there is complex trauma, or there's something like ADD, the child might need medication. So this is where we've got to collaborate and access the various resources in the area where the child is in order to actually help the child.
mm. So Amanda, what I'm gonna do now, because we have such a lot of technical issues, I don't want to still fiddle around and then we lose connectivity again. I will place all of the details, Arise details. I will place on the chat. So when once we're done with the live, you will actually can go back and you will find the details and you can actually contact them. If you are part of an organization and you would like to assist them, because it's kind of seems like you want to go that way, or maybe you're really in that field, and I think they would appreciate it. So I actually like the fact that you're saying, um like, there is no time to do all of these things, because just listening to you already, I was like, how in the bejesus do you guys get this right? Because to do that in 90 days, I'm like, y- you're not even done with paperwork yet, and then you need to, then the 90 days are finished basically. So when does counseling start? When does the child get to feel attachment of any sort? I mean, I have girls, and if anything happens, we are like little hens or chickens
Mm,
around the children, just waiting for when they're gonna collapse, so that we can carry them. um
yeah.
and I mean, how you guys probably have hundreds of children with you guys in foster care, and I mean, to go through that traumatic stage every time, like when it gets to a 2 year stage of, am I gonna have to leave again? Am I, because I'm sure they get attached to you guys there, which is now their new parents almost.
I
um
Yeah, for foster parents it's hard, and there's a lot of work that also has to be done with our foster parents in the process in terms of how to manage the questions. Because imagine if a little child, they come to you as like a baby, where they don't really have verbal skills to talk, and now they're just like they're with you since they're 18 months old, and now they're 6, and now they start noticing. But every couple of months, here's someone coming. Um,
Mm,
and sometimes part of court proceedings is that the child must be at court. And
mm,
it's like my worst nightmare when I ask them, "Did you tell the child while they're here?" And they're like, "No." Like the
mhm,
less the child knows, no, we can't hide these things from the children. Because mommy might have been missing for 6 years. And then
mm,
now the child is 11, and now we find mommy's not gone to rehab, and mommy's got herself together, and she wants
mm.
contact with the child. And the
Sure.
child has had no idea that there's actually a mommy. So we work with the foster parents as well to encourage them to be honest, to be open,
Mm,
how to equip them to actually hold the emotions of this child,
mm,
and also to speak to the reality that your parents might, or maybe in
yeah.
the process of trying to better themselves, and the goal
Mm,
is actually for you to be with your family. But you know what, then
mm,
you've got two families. So you
yeah.
you don't want to sugarcoat it too much, but you need to be realistic and age appropriate, I think.
Mm, mm, mm. And I tend to think when we, especially our community as Scarlets, we tend to, and I think it goes way back when as we were growing up, it's like muni my tana tiali. And so
Mm.
now we almost, as again, we don't want to tell you too much, but then the bubble busts, and then you standing there like and then
Oh, it's
you
like
know
we
I'm,
would.
mm,
There's this horrible image I have always of it, like the 21st birthday. Then they're like, "Oh, we actually want to tell you that you adopted." Oh, and the trauma that inflicts upon a person it's so bad.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
This is like,
It's like also, if you go through it, like your parents go through a divorce, you see them happy the whole time, and now it's like, oh, we're gonna divorce. Excuse me, what happened?
it's like, where was I?
Yeah. So I tend to think, yes, we need to get, I don't say tell your kids everything, but kind of include them in processes where it's like this is what's gonna happen, especially when a situation like this where I might not be your foster parent in the next 4 years.
Mm.
Things might change. Um and so yeah. So how do you become a foster parent, first of all?
You can approach Department of Social Development and all the
Mm,
child protection organizations, and then you can, speak to them about that. I always feel like it's a calling. So it's not just something you happen upon. You must be called to do it. That you are
mhm,
interested in being a foster parent. There's obviously an application process and a screening process. So they would vet you, to see whether
okay.
you are capable, whether you're fit, whether you have capacity, and whether your
Mm,
motives, are correct in terms of wanting to
mm,
be a foster parent or even a temporary safety parent. We want to come and see your house. We want to make sure that you're not breeding pet pythons or something in your house. We'll do reference checks. We want a police clearance. We want a child protection register check. You need to be
mm,
capable to meet the needs of a child. And most often,
mm,
if you already have your own children, we also look at the ages of the children, to
mm,
see that can your family handle it? Because if you are wanting to do it and the rest of your family is not on board, can you just imagine what that
mm,
child is going to go through coming in as an
mhm,
outsider? It's
mm,
like, oh, you're displacing the whole birth order in the house. The eldest is now no more the eldest, and it's just total chaos. So we make sure
mm,
that the family's on board, that they support, that everybody understands what is going to happen, and also that there's this thing of, oh no, I'm going to take in this child, and you become so attached to this child, and then you don't want to let the
mm,
child go. So there's a very fine
mm,
line that you've got to balance in terms of, I'm going to love this child with all my heart, knowing that they are not mine, and that at some point I
mm.
might need
Yeah.
to let them go. But I think as natural parents, we kind of walk around that, but it's not on such a conscious level. It's very subconscious for us. But as a foster
Mhm,
parent, it's a very real thing where like, I'm opening my heart in my home, and most of the times you might not fully understand the depth of the trauma that the child has been through. So you've got, there's
mm,
that movie, what's it called, Instant Family. I don't know if you've seen it,
mm,
where they
mm,
take in the
mm,
three and they go
mm,
through all those phases. And I just love the
mm,
way they do the group settings. And it's like people are
mm,
so honest and raw, but like it's
mm,
not fun in the beginning. There are going to be times where
mm,
you want to run away.
mm,
But you have put yourself out there to take in this child. And all they really do need is your love, your honesty, and your safety and security of your home. So you kind of got to push through it. I mean, I run away from my own kids. I lock the door like I did now, but
Don't
they
we
are
all?
no more. But it's
Okay.
knowing that this child deserves it more than
Sure.
anything in the world.
Mm, mm. Ah, okay. What are some of the challenges that you guys as an organization go through?
Being in the NGO sector, funding. That's the
Yeah.
first one, I think we all hit that.
Hmm.
But I think it's that it's always having to constantly network and collaborate is so important because we all place in communities, the needs are so diverse. Um, we will never have enough resources to actually meet the needs of our community. Whether it is effective counseling. I always tend to think of it, we can only do so much. So we all, it's like there's the local government elections now. I think there were like 6 bakkies with big speakers driving past my house today. And I was like, where did these parties come from? And that's what happens with NGOs. They pop up, but ons praat nie met mekaar nie. So ons werk eintlik teen mekaar, maar as ons net 'n bietjie met mekaar kan gesels, dan kan jy sien, "Haai, maar ek kan nie daai doen nie, maar jy kan." En dan werk ons so saam and then we can actually cover more.
Yeah, yeah. We do have that tendency in when it comes to organizations. Now I do this, you do that. But in the end of the day, when we set out to do these things, it was to help children. Um, but then we kind of all get into our own bubbles, and it no longer becomes we're helping children, becomes how can I don't want to talk to you because you can steal my funding and you can steal my idea. And at the end of the day, we more so the kids doesn't get the help they need because we kind
So
of
true.
having our own little fights. Yeah. So it's actually yeah. So as a community, what are some of the things that we need to be kept accountable for?
I think that because we spoke about child abuse, you cannot speak about child abuse without talking about child protection. Now, people hear that word and they're already like, ugh, these social workers. Hier kom die auntie wat die kinders vat. I used to hear that every time when I was a student and we came down in the car into the community. Um,
Mm,
so there's this natural aversion by the community to stay away from social workers. And all I want to say is we don't just take children, okay? Um, Child protection is everybody's business. Child
mm,
protection is this big umbrella term. And it literally is that auntie that is selling fruit on the corner that keeps an eye on the children going into the school. That is child protection. You, as a parent, spending time with your child and talking to them about the dangers of the society or life in general. That is child protection. The teacher at the creche, the imam at the mosque, the pastor at church, the Sunday school teacher. The time you are spending is meeting a need in that child's life. So we are all part of child protection. And us as professionals, our job is actually to share that information and to break down the stigma. The community, we go in and we need to build trust with you guys.
mm,
So that you know that we are not just there to criticize you about your parenting style, to tell you that you know what you're not good enough. That is not our function. Our job
mm,
is to work. Ons moet saamwerk. We all need to work together
mm,
because
mm,
it does take a village. It absolutely
mm,
takes a village. The teacher at school, because mommy is working. So you keeping an eye on my child for 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day. And then my child is coming home, and then my child needs my attention as a parent. Whether you are the coach coaching my son's soccer, you are having an input in that child's life. It's talking to them about the dangers, just a second. Sorry. But it's everybody's business.
mm,
Yeah. So I think we
mm,
need to share the information that we as professionals have, break down the stigma, and encourage the
mm,
collaboration so that our communities can come to us, not when they
mm,
are in crisis. Because I think when you get to statutory, dan is die
Mm.
ding al ver gevorder. Then the
Mm.
family's in crisis. So communities and families need to have trust in us as professionals to be able to come to us and say, listen, I feel like I'm not connecting with my child. And that's the kind of work we do at Arise, where families can come and say, hey, we are struggling to connect, or I don't understand my child because they're now in the teen years. How can we, just forge that connection so that the rebellion doesn't become too bad, where you come and say, but now he's staying out, he's smoking dacha, he's dropped out of school, and now we must get the statutory social worker involved. So we can become part of your journey and not the crisis intervention when it's too late.
I like that. I've never heard that one before. So I really like that you guys are doing that. And previously, we also spoke to a social worker, and it came to that same thing as where there is that stigma with social workers, even when you go to school. So before COVID, we used to do anti bullying presentations, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so people would come to talk to us rather than going to a social worker. So what we ended up doing was build that bridge between the school social worker and us. So where they would come to us because we're just the aunties that bring fun games and kind of talk about it. So they link with us, they connect with us, and then we kind of, okay, I think you're ready for the next step now. This auntie can prepare you a little bit better. So now we've already listened to the whole story and we can tell the social worker this and this and this. But don't worry, you're not gonna stay with her alone. You can still check in with me once you
Yeah.
feel that way. And then it's kind of like holding the hand and like they're moving to the next thing. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of stigma with social workers when it comes to no, I'm crazy. And so I think
Yeah.
there, as organizations, we also need to do our work with kind of breaking that stigma of no, you're not crazy. It's just someone you can talk to. Where your mommy can't
Yeah.
understand you sometimes, she understands you. She understands all your craziness and accepts it.
Mm.
Um, there is a safe space for you. So
Yes.
there definitely we need to, when it comes to mental health, we need to bring that space in more, and like this is a safe space that you can go and talk to. But like I also told the one social worker, I think you must change your names, not social workers. That puts people off. You must say I'm just that bisige antie oor die pad selfde se sy.
Okay.
As net my black boekie van mense wat ek ken is 'n bietjie dikker as Hanne. So I can connect you up quicker.
Okay.
You see, because the social workers are throws what throw the people off. So now we
Yeah.
also know as an organization what we need to do, and it's definitely to break that stigma of
Yeah.
everything. So definitely, I think there we should work a bit more when it comes to that. Um,
Mm.
as a parent, what and I like the fact that you guys give that kind of option to come to you guys and say, I'm now in the teen years. I've been doing well during the toddler years and all of these things, but teen years are driving me insane. What can I do? So
Mm.
I like the fact that you guys give that option of Ikasimia Alini. So
Mm.
I can go talk to these people, go vent by them, and then come home and be a sanctified mommy. Um,
Love that.
so I love that. I'm like, ooh, gaan liewer stil op die vrou gaan skree en dan gaan ek net huis toe kom and like just be at peace with myself. Just like,
We actually have a family forum. It's an open family forum support group. It runs on a Tuesday and a Thursday from 10:30 to 12. Parents, caregivers, you come, you get a sandwich, a cup of coffee, or a biscuit, and that is your safe space. No children. I don't teach the entire hour and a half. It is their space where they can share. We encourage, we uplift as jy wil vent. En hoor ek nie, ek het aangegaan met die sloffie vir 'n halfuur en sê ek, okay, next week your goal is for 20 minutes. And we address the issues, but we equip you as a parent. But it's practical, it's on the ground, and I think the value they find in it is that they are not alone. Because so often we're all sitting with the same problem. Our kids are growing up, the world is changing. Our parents did not prepare us for this world. And now we are the parents. And you're like, what am I doing? I'm not ready. My 5-year-old my 5-year-old challenges me, and I'm just like, I was not seen. I was not heard. I was this person that did what I was told. And now my 5-year-old tells me, give me privacy, please. So we maybe not that equipped, but if you
Mm.
can find support and a network where you know that, hey, you know what, I'm not a bad mom. I always tell my parents in my family forum, and I'm like, you don't need to be the perfect parent. You need to be real, and all you need to do is you need to be good enough,
Yeah.
because you know exactly what is coming your way. It's the ek sê vir hulle altyd, as dieselfde duiwel net met 'n ander baadjie. So we just gonna
Yeah.
teach you, we equip you with skills, and it all comes
Mhm.
down to you as a parent learning how to manage yourself better, how to regulate, because our children model their behavior on our behavior. So if
Mm.
you're gonna ruk los, then your child is also gonna ruk los. So we have to model the calm. I always tell my kids, I'm gonna share
Mm.
my peace with you, not my chaos. Even when my soul is screaming on the inside and I want to grab the broom, but I'm displaying the picture of calm.
Mm. As like my sister sometimes says, she's swearing on the inside, but outside it's just like,
Yes.
I love you, baby.
Yes. But it's also teaching our children that, especially the little ones, I always tell them
Mm.
your emotions is bigger than your body. And we as
Mm.
parents, I think we get pushed to that point so often in our day.
Mm.
And it's how do you
Mm.
regulate to get that emotion back inside your body? So now you have
Mm.
to teach your child that. And
Mm.
it's also just getting down to their level, spending time, and
Mm.
building that connection. We there's a thing we say at work is you have to connect before you can correct. Now, us from the
Yeah.
80s and predating those years, we were not connected with, ons was net correct.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
a new way of doing.
Yeah.
And I think we feel alone as parents. We feel like we're failing. But if you've
Mm.
got support, so anybody that's in Heidelberg, we're running on a Tuesday at the moment, 10:30 to 12. Athlone, if you can make it there, you're more than welcome to pop in. But it's just like you said, as much as our kids need safe spaces, our
Yeah.
parents also need safe spaces.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, ek is actually jealous aan die mense van Heidelveld. Asseblief mense gaan van my pad. Um, but is definitely a new world. And I often say, my kids have taught me as much about myself now because it's a thing of if I want better communication from them, I need to better communicate. And sometimes you do it very well, but like in a stressful day, it's like then they will also say, "Mommy, you are not using your words properly." Or "Mommy, your actions are bad," because we don't tell them they're naughty. We will say your actions are bad. So
Yeah.
because we don't want to make the whole child naughty, we just like
Mhm.
address the action.
Yes.
Um, so that is kind of, and sometimes you good, and sometimes you slip up. Then I'm like, I'm also human.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've also learned with them is before, especially because I have four daughters. So with the first two, I was very like OCD, and you know, my oma het my
Sterilize the dummy.
yes. En like soos my oma my geleer het, jy moet net slap na haar kom. But like afterwards, I kind of learned because I didn't know how to control myself around them. I kind of spilled over to them. But
Yeah.
now we're almost in a relationship of let's discuss this, let's talk about this. How do you feel? Sometimes I check in with them. Am I still being the mommy? Am I still supplying your needs? Because oftentimes we think we are doing this well, but we're not
Yeah.
actually feeding the emotional tanks in a way.
Yes.
So I just kind of check in like, huh. And then moet ek wa hoe verkeerd is ek. Maar anyway,
Yeah, don't
um
you hate it
yeah,
when they use our words against us?
yeah, then it's also that. Okay. So ons het nou gepraat oor vastekie en yeah, it's honestly I honestly don't know how you guys do it. I honestly don't know how you guys do it. I am thankful that you are doing it. In spite of everything else, um, we would obviously you guys are trying the best that you can to, like I say, get to the emotional part and the physical part and the admin. Just the admin alone would drive me crazy. And the admin alone. and then you must still network and all of these things.
Mm.
So besides organizations coming in and kind of helping you, is there something that the community can do? So if I'm not part of the community, can I come in and I like to play with the kids? Is that something that I can do?
I think there are different organizations that have different functions. So
Mm,
I know, like, recently Arise worked with Sisanda Foundation. They're currently
mhm,
operating in Guguletu, but they have play ambassadors, because what they've
mm,
discovered is that families are not connecting with the children, and children learn through play.
mhm,
So they go in and they play with the children, but it's not a case of random strangers coming in. These are
mm,
volunteers that are screened. It's a safe space. They are monitored, um,
mm,
and it's just creating that space. So whether you
mm,
feel that you have been called to, you know,
mm,
contribute to the field of
mm,
child protection, or get involved with, whether it's an afternoon soccer club or a holiday homework club, get in touch with an organization in your area, find out
mm,
what their needs are, because we, like you said, we can't do it all. And
mm,
where we do have volunteers that can assist us in some way with whether it's a project or a program, I think any organization would be so grateful for the help, because we are a village. We all want the best for our
mm,
children. So the more of us
mm.
there are, the better chance we're giving our kids.
Yeah. And the only reason why I ask this question is people constantly, there will be people that probably think, yes, but I don't want to be part of an organization. I would rather do it myself. The issue there is you don't want to expose the kids to more trauma. So
Yeah.
we also work with bullying. We don't just, today we work with someone and tomorrow they're not there, because kids get attached to faces and bodies and presences as well. So you don't
Mm.
want this to be there now. One kid is like attached to you, and then tomorrow you're not coming again. So that also causes a lot of trauma. So if you're part of a group and organization, you will have time schedules, you'll get screened. There is
Yes.
more of a protective nature than when it comes to the children and not necessarily the volunteers,
Mm.
because ultimately our aim is to protect the children and not so much the adults feelings in all of this thing, if
That
I'm
is, that
just
is that is so true. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's all about the best interest of the child. And by linking to an organization, you yourself are protected, because if you are going out and doing work on your own and you are accused, because it does happen, there's nothing
mm,
protecting you. If you don't
yeah,
have a policy that is, or protocols that are in place to protect you, or that you've ascribed to, then
mm,
you open season, because there are some kids that are going to, it does
mhm,
happen.
mhm,
And that is also why we screen people that want to be volunteers.
mm,
We do reference checks, because you don't want to put the wrong person in with the children.
yeah,
It was actually just this week we were writing, my colleague and I are writing a child protection policy, which is something I was thinking, hey, this needs to go into churches.
mm,
Because I'm like thinking, if I remember going to Sunday school, I didn't know these people from Joe. You just trust them. Why? Because they're adults. But like you were talking about, that relationship we build with our children, it's
mhm,
also informing them about their rights and trusting their own. We always used to say, listen to your uh-oh feeling. Like, what is your body
mhm,
telling you? Do you feel safe in these spaces?
mhm,
So even our volunteers, I mean, we value any assistance in any form. But it
mm.
needs to be done the right way so that everybody's protected, ultimately the children.
Yeah, definitely. And like I told the pink ladies last week, is that sometimes also our culture makes that we don't always, we say the word boundaries, we say the word safe spaces, but actually doing that, because of our culture now we grew up, it kind of, it defeats the word you're saying, because you would say
Yeah.
safe spaces, but you would just go and sit next to a child, touch them without asking, hug them without asking, because in our minds, it is our culture that taught us that when a child is supposed to greet, they must hug you, they must touch you. This is a different scenario. So you're taking the way the thing that you're
Mm.
trying to teach them, because of the culture that we were taught
Yes.
was different. And so when you
Yeah.
with an organization, all of those things, they can teach you kind of may I sit next to you? You're not supposed to touch a child, but if
Mm-hmm.
it gets to a child where a child is crying, may I comfort you? Type of situations.
Yes.
So it's all of these things, and you kind of also see it in churches. I like the fact that you mentioned that, as because as like again, is that culture that we bring into, you must, if you don't, you're almost going to hell because you're not, yeah. So because you're not hugging people. And I mean, when and that is something we taught our kids now, probably the
Yeah.
last few months, as like, and I said it last week as well. I said, look, that is not your uncle, because we always used to say, greet the uncle.
Mm.
Now the child often like would just go with the uncle because you said greet the uncle. Now we change it to no, greet the sir, greet the ma'am, and only
Mm.
your brother's brother and my brother is your uncle. No one else.
Yeah.
You don't go to anyone that tells your uncle because they're not your uncle. Um,
Yeah, because uncle has become connotated with bad things. The uncle did this to me. But I think, like you're saying, it starts in the home. I
yeah.
think when we were growing up, it's like the auntie or the uncle or whoever's gonna give you a kiss, and you're gonna sit on uncle's lap whether you like it or not.
Mm,
Now I'm like,
mm,
even grandma, if my child don't want to kiss you, just leave her.
mm, mm,
Respect their
mm.
boundaries. So
Yeah.
it's teaching them from a young age, so that as they
Um,
grow,
yeah.
they are more prepared in a sense, because
Mm,
the world is
mm,
changing so fast.
yeah.
What was feasible last week doesn't work this week. So we
Yeah.
as parents, we've got to be on our toes.
Yeah.
And that
Every
is,
time, I
like you said, part
guess.
of child protection, equipping your child, and that is how we, yeah, that is how we actually prevent the
Mm,
child abuse, the harm
yeah.
or the maltreatment that could happen.
Yeah. Because it's like you say, they already know there's something wrong, but because you are saying no, go greet the uncle, it kind of confuses what I know is wrong as to what you are saying, and I'm trusting you. And so tomorrow, when other uncle does something to me, should I trust what my body is saying, or should I trust what you have taught me as to go greet the uncle? The uncle is your friend, type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I like these kind of conversations. I will definitely would want to check in with you guys again once we've spoken to kind of every organization that we've contacted. And I think the biggest thing that we need to do, from what I've been learning from the Pink Ladies and you guys, is awareness when it comes to, and I think the lady of the Pink Ladies, also Jackie, also mentioned it last week when she said we should kind of be into this mode of knowing our neighbors around us, getting their numbers, being in contact with them again, so that when something
Yeah.
bad happens, it's not a shock to your system and now you don't know where to go. But when these
Mhm.
things are already in place, so I really can go talk to a social worker just because I don't know how to function as a mother in this stage of the child's life. It doesn't seem as
Yeah.
a daunting task to go when something is actually happening, because
Yeah.
I really talk to them on a regular basis. Um,
Yes.
I know the number to the police station. I know my next door neighbor, because if I'm not feeling good, I don't have to rush from work. I can say, go check there. Just go check up on
Mm.
if everything is okay. Um, the neighbor, and I know way back when in my days, die neighbors het baie gepimp by jou man. Um,
You couldn't get away with
and
anything.
En deesdae pimp hulle nie meer nie jong, because is like nie as jou kind, as jou besigheid,
Yeah.
hulle pimp nie meer nie. That's why you couldn't do anything, because hello as eyes that's
Yeah.
watching. And it also kept you safe in a way, because there was always eyes watching out for you. And I
Yes.
think we need to get back to that stage of actually really just watching our children, and not just your child, but every
Yes.
child out there. I
Yeah.
think we need to get back to that. So yeah, I don't know if you have any last words that you wanna part with us before we end off and say goodbye.
I think I just want to share, we hear child abuse and all that, and there's a lot of times we get random phone calls, and it's like, no, she's abusing the children. Um,
Mhm.
I think I want to, if I can call it discernment. I
Mm,
mean, we all know that when it comes to, let's say, physical abuse, there's discipline, there's
mm,
correcting a child, and then there's abuse.
mm,
So if you or a child comes to you and they are telling you that they are being hurt in a way, and it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the coach, the nurse, whoever, the teacher, it's important to report it. That is why there's a process of assessment investigation. Let us rather
mm,
find out what is happening because,
mm,
like I said, people don't want to access social services and social workers because of the stigma and the fear. But when a
mm.
child speaks out, we need to listen, no matter how
Sure.
small it is. When that child
Mm,
start telling you that they don't want to go somewhere, they don't want to go to someone's house, we need to start
mm,
paying attention. And the only
mm,
way we will know whether you know what this is a warning sign is really by forging that connection with your child or any children that are around you. So yeah, if I can encourage anyone is take the time, let's get off our phones a little bit more, get down
mm,
on the ground with your children, play those Lego blocks, finger paint if you can, play marbles. I had to make dresses for a little tiny LOL doll. It was about this big. And she cut the material for my curtains, but I had to play along, even though I was screaming on the inside. But these are the small sacrifices we make as parents or caregivers, and it means the
mm,
world to that child. So if
mm,
you can take 10 minutes to really, really connect with your child, your children, whether it's your foster child, temporary safety,
mm,
whatever. But
mm,
just forging that connection is the most important thing you'll ever do.
mm. Uh, yeah. I mean, I like talking to you guys tonight. Why you clarified and simplified a lot of the big gorillas that we kind of see behind the mountains. We actually saw no, they're just like little ants that is achievable in our daily
Yes.
lives. Um, and again, you kind of made this word of psychologist not as this fearful little alien that you need to look after, that it's
Mm,
actually very just the grandma next door that you need to connect with.
yeah.
Um, so that I appreciate from it, and all the information that you guys given us. If you are in Heidelberg people, Athlone, die mense het 'n support group daar vir die parents. If you feel like you want to vent, if you feel you want to scream, and there's no people that want to listen to you, please connect with them. They're there on a Tuesday between 10:30 and 12. Am I correct?
That is correct.
You go there, you scream at Cindy. She
No, no, no,
understands.
no. I
Um,
give you a pillow. You scream into the pillow. I personally prefer throwing bean bags.
oh,
We do not hurt people, but we get it out.
okay, okay, yeah. Pool noodles also help people. If you have a lot of anger,
True.
if you hit the pool noodles, it gets it out, but no one gets hurt. That is
Yeah.
also another trick if you need to know that. So yeah, screaming in water helps wonders. Yes. So that is just a few of my tips that I go through. Now that secret is out right there. But if you are in the Heidelberg Athlone area, please connect up with them. Like I said, once we're done with the stream, I will put the details on there. I will not put Cindy's number on there, unfortunately. Ons wil nog nie julle moet vir heeltyd plan nie. We will put a Rise's number on there, and you can contact them, and you can check in with them with their dates, especially if you're in the Heidelberg Athlone area. If you are an organization, please also connect with them, because every little bit help. And again, they would prefer not to have individuals because of the screening process that takes place. And they again contact the number that will be on there. If you have any issues when it comes to child abuse and want to report it, she again mentioned all the statutory people. This is now your social development bediese. Ek dink as 'n ACVV, is ek reg?
Yes.
Sê dit again.
Ascafia. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that those
Um,
people. And then there's also, what was the other name that you mentioned that I wrote down?
child welfare.
Child welfare. and the education department when it comes to education. So
Mm.
again, she mentioned there that child abuse is not just when it comes to physical and it comes to sexual. There is mental, and there is certainly the biggest one that we have in Western Cape is neglect. So please, I know a lot of times it's not because we want to abuse our child, it's more the fact that we are not fully equipped. Because wanneer ons mos nou die kinders kry, kom hulle nie met 'n manual nie. Ons kan nie net die manual opstel en dan gaan week alles sê. And then when they're broken, we can call in the IT services and they fix them up and almal daai nie. These people come with software upgrades and almal die goed wat ons nie altyd verstaan nie. But then instead of going to the IT people, we have the people such as Arise that will help you to update your software, so that you can assist your the child, because hulle groei gou. Sy moet amper elke tweede maand moet jy jou software upgrade. So julle moet byhou. So definitely there is people like Arise that will help you. And they are definitely, when it comes to keeping the family together, that is their best aim and their best goal. So again, we want to say thank you to Cindy for her time, which ek weet hy 'n tyd is baie belangrik in ons dae deesdae. So we want to thank her for giving up her time. Apologies for all the technical problems that we had way in the beginning, but we got through it. I think the technical people just didn't want us to get this message out because it was a very important message. But also deurgebyt. Selfs soos parenting, jy moet net deurbyt deur daai stukkie en dan kom jy uit, dan ons doen dit man. Ons doen dit.
There we go.
So yeah. So baie dankie Cindy for your time. Also for everyone who was watching and is still gonna watch. Amanda, please watch out for that information afterwards. And thank you for joining us and also for your questions. Hey? So met dit gaan ons baie sê, het lekker aan verder mense. Hou vir julle warm. Please stay protected, and for parents out there, please keep sane as well, for yourself and your children. So definitely, we will see you again next week when we talk to a group. Well, we're going to talk to social workers and we're going to hear their side. Cindy kind of delve into that a little bit. So nou ons is reg vir hulle moet vra. See. So next week we're talking to social workers, and getting their view on everything, their processes. So again, good night and thank you, Cindy. Bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.